Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'll be going through and breaking down Microsoft's Q3 2021 earnings. If you guys have been following me for a while now, you know that Microsoft is one of my favorite, if not my favorite stock. And I know that we are not supposed to have our favorites in the stock market, but I guess that's just how it is. Over time, I have come to appreciate and love Microsoft as a company and the stock itself, because the company has a solid business model and some really strong fundamentals. So in today's video, I'll do my best to give an unbiased view of Microsoft Q3 2021 earnings, and I'll be sharing both the good things and the things that I'm looking out for this quarter for Microsoft. We'll first begin by taking a look at an overview of Microsoft Q3 earnings, and the two things that most investors pay attention to are the revenue and the earnings per share. Microsoft recorded a revenue of $41.7 billion for the quarter versus $41.05 billion as expected. And for earnings per share, Microsoft recorded an earnings per share of $2.03 for the quarter versus $1.78 as expected. So on both fronts, for revenue and for earnings per share, for the third quarter, Microsoft beat both estimates. And these are some more third quarter results for Microsoft fiscal year of 2021. Revenue was $41.7 billion and it increased 19%. Take note that all this increase in percentages is a comparison to the corresponding period of the last fiscal year. Operating income was $17 billion and it increased by 31%. Net income was $15.5 billion and it increased 44%. Diluted earnings per share was $2.03, which increased by 45%. And if we break down Microsoft business into its three main segments, first up is productivity and business processes. Office commercial products and cloud services revenue increased by 14%. Office consumer products and cloud services revenue increased by 5%. And for LinkedIn revenue, it increased by 25%. And for the Dynamics product and cloud services revenue increased by 26%. Those are for the productivity and business processes. For intelligent cloud, server products and cloud services revenue increased 26%. And for the more personal computing segment, Windows OEM revenue increased by 10%. Windows commercial products and cloud services revenue increased by 10% too. Xbox content and services revenue increased 34%. Search advertising revenue, excluding traffic acquisition costs, increased 17%. And for Surface revenue, it increased by 12%. We see year-on-year increases across the board for Microsoft in its third quarter of the fiscal year 2021. We have taken a look at some of Microsoft Q3 earnings. And over here, I want to point out something in this video. I'll be placing more emphasis on quarter over quarter rather than on year over year. And the reason is this, because a year ago, for many businesses including Microsoft, that quarter wasn't a normal quarter because of the pandemic. So even though Microsoft was one of the few companies that was able to weather the storm quite well, I believe that a quarter over quarter comparison is a better indication of how Microsoft performed in its third quarter of the fiscal year 2021. This is Microsoft Q3 financial summary. Productivity and business processes was $13.6 billion. Intelligent cloud was $15.1 billion. More personal computing was $13 billion, which gave us a total revenue of $41.7 billion. Gross margin was $28.7 billion and the gross margin percentage was 69%. Operating income was $17 billion and operating income percentage was 41%. Net income was $15.5 billion and diluted earnings per share was $2.03. So that's a financial summary of Microsoft third quarter. For Microsoft second quarter, productivity and business processes was $13.4 billion, intelligent cloud was $14.6 billion, more personal computing was $15.1 billion, which gives us a total revenue of $43.1 billion. Gross margin was $28.9 billion and gross margin percentage was 67%. Operating income was $17.9 billion and operating income percentage was 42%. Net income was $15.5 billion and diluted earnings per share was the same at $2.03. To make sense of these numbers, we have to compare them. Over here, I compiled the numbers and put them together side by side so that we can make a better comparison. On the left side, we have the numbers for Microsoft third quarter for the fiscal year 2021, and on the right side, we have the second quarter for Microsoft. Revenue for the productivity and business processes segment decreased from $13.6 billion to $13.4 billion from the second quarter to the third quarter. That represented a 1.48% decrease. For intelligent cloud, revenue decreased from $15.1 billion to $14.6 billion, and that represented a 3.31% decrease. And for more personal computing, revenue increased from $13 billion to $15.1 billion, representing a 16.2% increase. And for total revenue increased from $41.7 billion to $43.1 billion, representing a 3.36% increase quarter over quarter. Gross margin was $28.7 billion, and for the third quarter, gross margin was $28.9 billion, and that represented a 0.69% increase. Gross margin percentage percentage in the second quarter was 69%, while gross margin percentage in the third quarter was 67%. Operating income for the second quarter was $17 billion, and operating income for the third quarter was $17.9 billion, and that represented a 5.3% increase. Operating income percentage was 41% in the second quarter and 42% in the third quarter. So for the productivity and business processes and intelligent cloud segments, we see a decline quarter over quarter, but overall revenue and operating income still increased over the quarter. One thing to pay attention to is Microsoft Intelligent Cloud segment. Its Intelligent Cloud segment is on the rise recently and is one of the key drivers of growth for Microsoft. So seeing a quarter over quarter decline is something for us to pay attention to. Next up, we'll take a look at Microsoft Q2 guidance for Q3. So what this means is back in the second quarter for Microsoft fiscal year 2021, Microsoft provided this guidance for its third quarter. Microsoft expected its Q3 revenue for its productivity and business processes segment to be anywhere between 13.35 to 13.6 billion US dollars. And in this case, Microsoft was spot on in its estimates, because third quarter revenue for its productivity and business processes was 13.6 billion US dollars. For its intelligent cloud segment, it expected this segment to bring in about 14.7 to 14.95 billion US dollars. And for the intelligent cloud segment, Microsoft actually managed to beat its own estimates, with its third quarter revenue for the intelligent cloud segment to be 15.1 billion US dollars. And for the more personal computing segment, it expected the business to bring in about 12.3 to 12.7 billion US dollars. For this segment, Microsoft also managed to beat its own estimates. Revenue for the more personal computing segment for the third quarter stands at 13 billion US dollars. And for its total revenue, Microsoft expected to bring in 40.35 to 41.25 billion US dollars. And for the third quarter, Microsoft also managed to beat its own revenue estimates, recording a revenue of 41.7 billion US dollars in total. For cost of goods sold, Microsoft expected its cost of goods sold to be anywhere between 13.1 to 13.3 billion US dollars. For cost of goods sold, we want the actual number for the cost of goods sold to be below what Microsoft expects, because cost of goods sold is an expense. And if an expense falls below its expectation, this is good news for the company. So in the third quarter, Microsoft had a cost of goods sold to be 13.05 billion US dollars, which falls short of the 13.1 to 13.3 billion US dollars that it estimated back in Q2. And for operating expenses, it's the same thing. We want the actual operating expenses to fall below what Microsoft estimates. Microsoft estimated its operating expenses to be anywhere between 11.9 to 12 billion US dollars. The actual number that came in for the third quarter is 11.61 billion US dollars. So for cost of goods sold and operating expenses, the actual number falls short of what Microsoft expected. And for overall, Microsoft expects its revenue to grow in the double digits. Microsoft managed to meet that expectation by recording a 19% revenue growth this quarter. So this is another thing that I like about Microsoft as a company. The company provides a conservative forward guidance. And just by taking a look at the Q2 guidance that Microsoft provides for Q3, we see that Microsoft beats most of its estimations. And this is also another way we can evaluate a company. If a company is able to consistently meet or beat its forward guidance, not only does that do good for the company's financials, but it also builds trust between investors and the company, which is in this case is Microsoft. So if we take a look at Microsoft Q3 guidance for Q4, it estimates that its productivity and business processes will bring in revenue of around 13.8 to 14.05 billion US dollars for the fourth quarter. And this is against the 13.6 billion US dollars that Microsoft has recorded for the third quarter. For its intelligent cloud segment, it estimates that its revenue will be between 16.2 to 16.5 billion US dollars. And that is an increase from 15.1 billion US dollars from the third quarter. For the more personal computing segment, it estimates that revenue will be between 13.6 to 14 billion US dollars. And that is also an increase from the 13 billion US dollars that it brought in Q3. For cost of revenue or cost of goods sold, Microsoft expects expenses to be anywhere between 13.7 to 13.9 billion US dollars. And that is an increase from the 13.05 billion US dollars that Microsoft incurred in Q3. And for operating expenses, it expects expenses to be anywhere between 13.1 to 13.2 billion US dollars. With current operating expenses at 11.61 billion US dollars for the third quarter, this represents a significant increase in operating expenses. So based on past performance, even though past performance does not indicate future results, we can expect that Microsoft is able to meet or even beat the revenue estimates that Microsoft provided in its Q3 guidance for Q4. So that's my breakdown of Microsoft Q3 2021 earnings. Don't forget to smash that like button because it will really help the channel grow and allow me to produce more content such as this. And if you are new to this channel and haven't already subscribed, make sure you subscribe to this channel because each week I release new videos about investing, trading and the stock market. I'll see you in those other videos. To your financial success.